Hey guys, it's a little early, but we're gonna check the stream to see if you guys can hear me and it's uploading properly. Today, we're gonna just make one recipe today. Our internet's not that great, so the recipe we're gonna be working on today is Wardonys in syrup, or Wardonys in syrup, which are just pears in syrup. But we're making our own syrup. So I had, I think, about three brown pears. You can use any pears that you have. And I cut them up. Now these are frozen because I got these 2 weeks ago and I have just now been able to do this recipe. So they've been in my freezer. But I cut them into fourths. And the first part of this recipe just calls for us to start boiling our pears, either fresh, frozen, however you have them. So I already had some boiling water here. And we're just going to boil those until they become tender. So in the this recipe, this is made for mostly an SCA camp. So it's, the recipe here uses 1 16-ounce can of pear halves and light syrup. But of course the original recipe doesn't say that. But there are a lot of ways to interpret period recipes. This specific one is from 2 15th century cookery books, Harleian MS 279, circa 1420 English. So 1420. A pretty old recipe. Now, what we're going to be using today is 1 16-ounce can of pear halves and light syrup, or I'm using 3 fresh pears. 1 cup of sweet red wine. We used port. Well, I'm actually going to be using Bridge Road Vineyards Cabernet Sauvignon, California, because that's what I have in my fridge, and it's a red wine. Because we're just going to be cooking it down into a syrup. The next ingredient, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, which I have here, and half teaspoon of ginger. Now, if you didn't want to just use 2, if you wanted to have a little more depth of flavor, you could use your powdered fort or your powdered deuce from the last stream. I'm not actually going to use those today because I'm going to stick to this recipe, but if you've already made those, either one of those, I would say half a tablespoon of either one of those in this recipe would work just fine. Alright, and then a 1/4 cup of sugar. Now, since my pears are fresh, they're not as sweet as the ones in canned syrup, so I'm actually going to be using 1/3 cup of plain white sugar. Then we have 1 teaspoon of vinegar. It doesn't specify what kind. I'm going to use red wine vinegar since we're already using red wine, but you can use apple cider, white wine, plain vinegar. It should all work. Then the last ingredient we have is 1/8 teaspoon of saffron. So this is my saffron. As you can see, I got it from TJ Maxx for $6.99. Saffron is the most expensive spice in the world, and that's why we're only using 1/8 teaspoon. It's mostly just probably for, I don't even know if it's for color, since this is already red. It may just have, they may have just used it to show off their wealth. If you could afford saffron in your dishes and you could see it, then you were very wealthy. Alright, so let's go ahead and start making the syrup, and then I will read the original recipe, how it was written. First, combine the wine, spices, and vinegar. Boil for about 10 to 20 minutes until the mixture starts to thicken. Add the pears to the wine mixture and stir well until coated. So, pretty simple. Let's go ahead and add 1 cup of our red wine. 1 cup of red wine. Then we're going to go ahead and add our 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and half a teaspoon of ginger. Our 1/3 cup of sugar. Our 1/8 of a teaspoon of saffron. Alright, so for the saffron, I'm just going to sprinkle the amount I would want, since 1/8 of a teaspoon is so small. And the vinegar. And I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of vinegar. Okay. And that's all we're going to add right now. And I'm going to get a whisk. Stir this up. We want all the lumps out of our cinnamon and ginger. Alright, and I'm also going to stir the pears around a bit. Now, if it's easier for you, you can cut these into smaller pieces, but if you are going to serve these to a crowd, each person could get either half or 1/4 of a pear. Most time you would do a half, but I'm going to do it in quarters because I'm going to be the only one eating these since I don't actually get to share them with you guys. Alright, anybody watching the stream?
Oh, yeah, we got Raquel Smith, Amber, Warsham, and Tanner.
Okay.
Hi, Tanner.
Alright, so now we just have to wait for the pears to boil, and, well, the pears are boiling, we have to wait for them to soften a little bit more, and then for this wine to turn into a syrup. So I'm going to turn it up a bit and stir it periodically. Alright, so here's a note on the original recipe if you're going to use the book. Now this book is called Tourney Cooking, Recipes to Enjoy at Outdoor Events. I picked this book up a few years ago at Gulf Wars from a book merchant there. It's got a lot of camp-friendly recipes. So these recipes would be really easy to cook outside. And if I'd started this live stream earlier or maybe later this summer, I can do some of these recipes outdoors. Alright, so it has started to boil rapidly. So I have the pears. I'm going to turn the pears down a little bit.
Rhiannon likes it. We clipped the book.
It's a lot easier. If I get something on my hands, I just touch the hanger. I don't actually have to touch the book and get it gross. Alright, so a note on the pears. We omitted the first cooking of the pears as they were cooked in the canning process. Now, if you do use canned pears, you don't have to do the boiling. If you can't find pears in light syrup, use the heavy syrup ones, but use less sugar. If there's leftover wine syrup, it makes a great hot drink. This can also be pre-made and reheated briefly in camp. So, if you want your wine syrup to be made into a drink, you can do that. Alright, so now let's read from the original recipe. And they call pears Wardonys or Wardonys. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. but Wardonys and syrup. Wardonys and syrup, Wardonys, and cast on a pot and boil them until they be tender. So that's what we're doing. Then take them up and pare them and cut them into pieces, which we've cut them into pieces beforehand because it was easier, but if you wanted to boil them first, then cut them, you could also do that. Take now a powder of cannel, a good quantity, and cast it on red wine, and draw it through a strainer. Now we don't have to do that because our sugar mine didn't have any lumps. I don't have to look for impurities. Same with the spices. Now, if I had impure sugar or lumps or anything like that, we could put it through a strainer, but that's not the case today. Cast sugar there too, and put it in an earthen pot and let it boil. And then cast the pears there too, and let boil together. And when they have boiled a while, take powder of ginger and cast too, and a little vinegar and a little saffron, and let that be poignant and douse it. And that's the end of it. So the process in the original recipe is a bit different than what we're doing here. But period recipes can be interpreted differently by the people who are cooking them. So if you look in this book, all of the original SCA period recipes are included, but then underneath it we have our modern redaction of what's going to be easiest for us to recreate. But if there's something you don't like, just go refer to the original recipe, or if something doesn't turn out like you think it should, maybe the redaction is wrong. So this is getting a bit thicker. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. So if one of the spices is too muted or too strong, instead of adding them all in at the same time, in the original recipe it says to have them boil a while with the sugar first, then to add the spices. So if I make this recipe and it doesn't taste quite right to me, next time I would actually follow the period recipe instead of the redaction. And that could be said for all of these. Do we have a comment or question?
No, that was a message from a personal message.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and this serves 4 to 6 1/2 pear per person. So if you were going to make this as at an event, maybe a feast or something for dessert, half a pear per person. So it's not quite a syrup yet, but it has thickened considerably. But we're going to continue to cook it down. Now for our pears, they're done. So I'm going to turn those off and strain them. There's, I don't know if we can see them on camera or not, but those are my cooked pears. I'm just going to let those drain and cool in the sink. Alright, so do we have any questions or comments? Well, if not, we can move.
Well, we had to delay.
Oh, okay. I had another recipe in here. Let's see. It was an main course recipe that I considered making as well, but I wasn't able to get a hold of the ingredients this week. So perhaps next time. What is it?
So Rhiannon asked, what will the texture of the pears be?
Well, they're very, very soft.
When they're done.
Right now, they're a bit wiggly and pretty soft. After we put them in the sugar.
Show them again. You don't.
Oh,
It's not
did it
in
not?
frame.
Over here.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. That's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is it in frame? Yeah, they're kind of wiggly right now and very hot. I'm not sure. I haven't actually made this recipe before. I've made one really similar to it where I baked the pears in the oven, and those came out a little too stiff. So I made sure to actually boil them for a while, because I don't really like biting into a really hard pear when they're supposed to be cooked. So, is this in frame? Can you see? So here's my syrup so far. It's pretty syrupy. I'm gonna let it cook for a little bit more, because I want it to be a bit thicker than that, but you could probably stop right here and put the pears in, but I am going to let it cook for a little bit more and get a bit thicker. But I'm going to go ahead and try a little bit. And it's really, really good. All the alcohol's been cooked out long before. So you just have a really, really nice, sweet, red wine flavor, but without the alcohol. It's just really sweet and really, really nice. I think the 1/3 of a cup of sugar was the right call. So yeah, I know those are going to taste really, really good. I'm just going to wait for it to get a bit thicker. But the other recipe I was going to make was the sausage and pottage. I think this would probably go pretty well with this. It's you use sausage, Granny Smith apples, sweet onions, butter, sugar, nutmeg, cinnamon, white wine, and then salt. And this is one I would like to do maybe in the next 2 weeks or so. Or this one would be a really great one to make outside. So that could be for the future.
Raquel Smith asked, what cookbook is that?
Tourney Cooking. Is this in frame?
Yep.
Okay. Tourney Cooking by Recipes to Enjoy Outdoor Events. The editor was Kelly Bosch. I'm not sure where to buy this. I bought this in person at an SCA event 3 years ago. I'm not sure. You just have to Google the title and see if it'll come up online. I'm not sure where. Hopefully on Amazon, but not sure. Oh yeah. Okay. I think it's thick enough. Thick enough. You see it?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think it's thick enough. At least it is for my preference. I'm going to go ahead and add the pears. And I'm going to turn off the heat. And just stir them around in the syrup. Yeah, it's a nice thick syrup, so they're getting well coated. Yeah, I can definitely see why they said you could turn the leftover syrup into a drink, because there's going to be plenty of leftover syrup in this. The pears don't seem to really soak it up I suppose if you left them in it overnight, or if you made these ahead of time, it might soak up more. But if I was going to eat one of these right now, there's plenty of syrup left over for the drink. We've got like 2 more to coat.
So we have a question asking, have we made mead before? From Alejandro Almodovar.
Oh yeah, have we made mead? We've made a lot of mead. How many gallons do we have in the closet right now?
Close to 20.
Close to 20 gallons right now. We've made
Off the top of my head.
50 gallons in the past.
Well,
Right.
we took 32 that initial run. 32 gallons.
Yeah. So overall, how many gallons do you think we've made?
We're probably pushing 60.
About 60 gallons since we've started brewing.
That's what, been 3 years ago? 3,
Yeah.
4?
Our first batch is pretty much gone. We made a really, really lovely blueberry mead, and it was amazing. Right now we have just a plain mead in the closet. We have a strawberry jalapeno mead,
Cherry.
cherry,
And then cherry vanilla.
and cherry vanilla. So 4 different flavors are in the closet, just waiting right now. They could probably be bottled. They're just aging. You can just age them in the carboy. It's not a problem. We were gonna have them, we can probably have them next year around March. I think they would be really good. But yeah, we do a lot of brewing. Right now, in the last few streams, I've made a dandelion wine that is ready to be put into another carboy. A peach and a plum wine that is still going. I can't do anything until it stops bubbling. And then I have a berry, well actually the berry wine is still going, the peach one is not. So probably next weekend or this coming up weekend, those would be safe to rack and take out all the fruit and throw it away. Some people use the fruit in baked goods. I'm not that person. I actually don't think they taste very good. I'm just gonna throw away the fruit or compost it. And then we have to wait at least another week to make sure that the yeast didn't reactivate when we took the fruit out. Then if we're sure it has not reactivated, then we can go ahead and bottle it. So we've got lots of mead ready to be bottled and wine probably next weekend to be racked, and then the week after to be bottled. But yeah, alright, now I've got the pears, they're done. I will go ahead and put it on a plate for you guys to see the end result. I'll put a little bit of syrup. Alright, so here's just a quarter of the pear. Hopefully that's in frame. Yeah, the syrup is nice and thick. The pear has soaked it up quite a bit.
Oh, you was interrupted.
Oh, the stream's gone? The stream gone?
Yeah.
When did it go out?
Just now.
Just now. I was done talking. I didn't get to try it on camera.
Okay, it looks like we're back.
Okay. We're back. Pears are done. Now it's time for the taste test before my internet goes out again. Alright, so let's see how they cut. Alright, cuts really, really easily. The syrup is nice and thick. Really, really nice. The pears are really soft. It's cut down on the grittiness of pears to boil them for that long. There's still, of course, a little bit of grit there. I don't think there's a way to really get rid of that. But no, I would highly recommend making this. It's super easy, not very many ingredients, and pears aren't super hard to find. I got these 2 weeks ago. I think these would be a really, really big hit at an SCA feast. They seem really plain and simple, but they are packed full of flavor. And yeah, I would be very happy if this was served as the dessert portion at the end of a feast. Alright, and that is the end of the pears. So if this is in frame, you can see. Now, if you look, there is a ton of syrup left. Now, what does it say about the drink? If there's leftover wine syrup, it makes a great hot drink. This can also be pre-made and reheated briefly in camp. So I'm not sure if I'd want to actually drink the syrup, but it might be really good added to some seltzer water or LaCroix. I'd like to drink that, or if you had like a hot whiskey or bourbon, if you're having a hot toddy, I think that syrup drizzled in it and stirred up would be really, really nice. So yeah, I could see definitely adding that to a hot or an alcoholic drink. I had previously planned to maybe make a cookie recipe with this stream, but our internet isn't that great, so I may make that one on stream. If not, I'll just post pictures to my Facebook. Alright. Now before we end, are there any more questions?
Oh, seems like we weren't interrupted, so if you want to keep going, we can.
Oh, it wasn't?
Nope.
Oh.
Yeah, no, they heard everything we said.
Okay.
So, I'm kind of curious how many people went to the Graywood event. Because we went to that over this last weekend.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, we loved the classes at the Graywood event. So, there's going to be another event like that soon. Do you remember where it is? Or who's putting it on?
Beltane?
Beltane, yeah. They're having a full day of online classes, and I cannot wait to participate in that. I adore SCA classes. It's my favorite thing to do at events. And now I don't have to leave my house, and I can still watch everyone do everything. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. Yeah. Anything else?
Delay.
Okay, we'll wait a bit. Because it's only 7:53. Well, we did start a little early. We started about 7:25. But you can see this is a really quick recipe. And this is on camera. So it took me a bit longer than it may have if I was just doing this normally. I'm gonna have another pair while we wait for questions or comments. Yeah. So there's the inside of the pear. What's that in frame?
More towards you. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so nice and red, but still white inside. Oh, alright, then if there's no more questions or comments, I'm going to end the stream here. Alright, I hope you guys learned something, enjoyed the stream. If you missed it, this will still be uploaded on my Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel called On Place to Green, and I'm going to upload it to the YouTube channel if you need to go back and screenshot the picture of the cookbook, or if you want to just watch the first part of the recipe. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.